Y si nos dormimos, porque ya no estamos trabajando, así que salga mejor, porque mínimo estamos durmiendo unas 5 horas. No alcanzamos ya, chile.
Greetings and welcome to Tryhard Mode. In this video, we will share the process of what was our first game jam, creating the video game Developing Madness, as well as the development of the entire project from start to finish. We will also show you our mistakes and achievements, what we learned in the process, and what strategies we will take for our next game jam. The game jam in which we participated was the Game Maker's Toolkits one, which has apparently been the largest in the platform of each IO so far. And once they announced the theme of Auto Control, we set up to design the mechanics of the game. Being our first game jam, we didn't want to dedicate a lot of time to adapt the mechanics and style of the game to this theme, so we opted for the first mechanic that came to mind with the theme of Auto Control. That in our case was the game Overcooked, which is a real fun game in which the purpose of the player is to manage a kitchen, deliver orders to customers, and at the same time to deal with chaotic scenarios and great variety of challenges. With this in mind, I quickly sketched an idea of what our scenario will be, and we got up to work. The theme was revealed at 2 PM of our time zone on the 10th of July on Friday, so we will have until 2 PM on Sunday the 12th to submit our project. The idea was to dedicate Friday to this part of the project, which in our case will be to model the scene and the main character, and dedicate the rest of the weekend that we have free to the parts that most complicate us, that are the code, the design of the UI, and in general putting the game together. I find this to be the easiest part because as an architect, it is very common to put together conceptual 2D environments within limited timeframes, especially interior designs or habitable spaces. So having done it hundreds of times, we expect it to be the strongest feature in our game. Most of the secret of conceptual modeling is to add enough detail for anyone to identify the areas or objects, but no more detail of what can be perceived because that will be a waste of time. So it is recommended that all the elements that we incorporate are modular objects that can be duplicated and that are of common design and easy to recognize. For example, for all doors we only use 2 different models, one for the closet doors and one for the regular hinged doors, and all our windows use the same model, even if we have 2 different window sizes. Also in our furniture, we use the same module for the 3 different sofa sizes that we have, and the side tables, the chairs and the stools all use the same base model. In this way, we can use several times the same model, but mixing it with different colors and different positions, or creating small variations. Gradually we can build a scene that at first glance seems quite complex, but only recycles the same elements over and over again. It is also recommended creating some unique objects with particular colors that contrast with the scene, but this will be the minority. In this scene, for example, we have the refrigerator, or the coffee maker on the bar, or the bathroom furniture. Once we've made use of these tricks a couple of times, the rest is only to familiarize ourselves with the tools of our modeling program. In this case, we're using Blender, which is the program of preference for most game developers, because it is free and versatile, where other options like SketchUp, 3ds Max, or Maya use the same basic tools that are to extrude, scale, or inserting faces. This was the scene progress for the first day. We still need to include textures and color, but the next day we'll be working fully on the project. On Saturday, we started by creating a basic color palette that we will use as a general texture throughout the project. An easy way to create these palettes is once choosing a brightness and saturation, just to keep alternating colors. Already with the main character and the scene modeled, all we needed is to assign the textures to all of these models and fit the UVs within the color we want for each corresponding face. In this way, it is very easy and fast to assign colors to our whole scene and to our character, that although they will not have as much detail as if we had drawn independent textures for each type of material, it is going to make the game much more accessible and easy to load, and at the same time we will cut up a lot of production time, which is what we look for with projects with such close deadlines, to get the best quality we can in our final product, but investing as little effort and time as possible, because in the end it always takes time to polish the weakest elements of the game and to fix bugs. At around 2 PM on Saturday, we completely finished modeling and texturing our scene, and we had 24 hours left to solve the code, audio and UI, as well as playtesting and balancing our game. We continue to export our model to Unity, but first a little tutorial to configure our rendering engine and post-processing settings.
So a while back we did a video we worked with. It's called the scriptable render pipeline process definition. And this all science these 4 cool it's on it last. He does have before we get started. Special thanks to I've also gone ahead and set up a few
As you can imagine, at this point we begin to feel the pressure, and Ellie on her side began to work on the code and behavior of our character. 3 hours later, we already had the scene set up and the character with the basic movement behavior to be able to start working on the player's interaction with the scene. The first thing I did was to add colliders and physics to our furniture to allow the player free interaction with the world as well as visual feedback. Next I worked on interaction codes based on event systems.
This will come into this plugins folder, and if we entered assets, but I'm going to get rid of all this stuff.
This week, we're taking a look at building a custom event system for your game. We'll look at how to build one and why doing so might be useful. But first, we're going to have to take an instance of current. So let's talk about access data. Get a rest would usually fit scripts.
By 7 PM, I've already created a basic event-based interaction system similar to the one in our Lingering Nightmares game, and we've already had interactive hinge and sliding doors. The same system will be used for their interactions with the computers, toilet, coffee maker, and breaker box. All the tutorials we use will be included in the description of the video. For her part, Ellie started working on creating the next character, which will be that of the girlfriend of the main character, and will work as an obstacle in our game. I'm not sexist, I swear, Ellie took part in this decision as well. She used the same model and rig of our main character, only slightly adjusting the animations and mesh, and choosing other colors from our general texture. Sharing the same rig between characters gives us the benefit of saving time by recycling animations between this and another character that we will show next. I for my part start working on the bars and counters that will mark the main dynamics of the game.
Have you guys ever heard the one about the polar bear that walks into a bar and he's like, "Can I get a beer?" And the bartender is like, "No, you can get a health. It's a health bar."
Rockies never change. I started by creating the sprites of what will be the frame of our bars, the sprite for the bladder of our bathroom bar, the sprite for the stamina bar, that of our progress bar, finally the bar that tells us how much time we have left to finish the project. Fortunately, the tutorial worked to create all of our bars.
And there we go. We now have something that looks and acts like a health bar. Awesome. Of course, the next thing that we need to do is add some code that is going to adjust this health bar on the fly.
Once we had the bar shown in the tutorial, we duplicate and only added the corresponding sprites to each of the mechanics, and we were easily able to incorporate them into our event-based interactions, and thus chose how each interaction affected the corresponding bar. We added a coroutine-based counter for the bars to change over time, and at 11:30 our coffee maker already increased the stamina bar, Working on the computer, increase the progress bar. The coffee maker also increase the bladder bar. So you have to go to the bathroom the more you drink coffee. And the interaction with the toilet did its thing. At the same time, Ellie worked on the girlfriend's code, which now completed a patrol route based on waypoints. Once the player enters its detection area, it starts chasing him, and once he reaches him, the code will disable the player controller for that short time. Here's where I want to remind you, before sharing the final phase of the game's development, that also includes spoilers, that if you're interested in playing our game, we include the link in the description of the video. Each session only takes 5 to 10 minutes of gameplay, and you can download it of course completely free. We've already had a better reception and feedback than what we expected, but any additional feedback helps us immensely to improve these and future projects. While Ellie was finishing the code, I started working on the title screen. For this was already around 1 AM, and by this time we started to consider which elements of the game could be removed due to lack of time, or which were the ones we need to polish with the highest priority, because only 12 hours were left to submit the project, and our level of productivity began to deteriorate due to tiredness. We saw ourselves in the need to include the game's instructions on the home page, which, due to the lack of time, also worked as a pause menu. This was probably one of the weakest points in the game, because it saturated our players with too much information, and at the same time, it did not make clear the exact position of all our interaction objects, which, although it does not seem like a serious problem, it is an inconvenience for the rest of the game developers for a reason we will explain next. At around 6 AM in the morning, we integrated the girlfriend mechanics, although she still needed some adjustments, and Ellie started working on the last character of the game, which will be that of the protagonist homemate, and that we solved with the same model of the main character, but changing the selection of colors, removing the beard, and adding a mustache. These will be the only characters we could include in the game for lack of time, and by 7 in the morning we started to panic. We had completely ruled out the idea of getting a few hours of sleep, and our only concern was to fix in any way the basic mechanics of the game. Any clean or proper programming criteria had already disappeared, and we ended up fixing all the missing mechanics with direct codependencies. However, the game was already beginning to take shape. We already had visual feedback for all our interactions and events. All our interactive objects affected the bars correctly. The progress bar was already triggering the victory screen once filled, or the defeat screen will be triggered if the time limit or stamina runs out. The bladder bar took care that you won't get any progress working on the computer until you don't go to the bathroom and lower it from its maximum value. Finally, we have the breaker box that disabled the utility of the computers and the coffee maker until the moment you left the house, and took 5 seconds interacting with it to switch it back on. At the time, Ellie was about to finish the code conduct for our last character, and I started working on the audio of the game.
In this video, we're gonna have a look at adding audio to your game.
I asked Ellie to help me with the girlfriend's audio that came out a little more annoying than it needed to. We recorded all the audio with the cell phone's microphone. I didn't record the clip when I produced the soundtrack, but I showed you it's very simple. In Ableton Live, I use a free plugin of Complete Start from Native Instruments. In the drums, we select the instrument chorale, we press all the keys with our feet, and there you go. And that's it. We ended the project at approximately 11:30 in the morning. We investigated how to upload it to itch.io, and shortly after 12 o'clock, it was already submitted to the Game Jam event, almost 2 hours before the deadline. we could have worked a little more on the project, but by now we were so tired that any attempt hurt the game more than it helped. And well, what was the final state of the project? Or in what state did we submit it? We consider it a complete game. It has a start, a challenge, or several in this case, and a conclusion. Whether you complete the goal or if you fail the mission. That, according to at least one of our players in the game's comment section, it is possible to win the game. I personally have never succeeded. Ellie could due to a bug that prevented the girlfriend from spawning, but if at least a player can make it, we consider it a complete success. And well, what were the mistakes that we make during this project? I think that the most important one of all was precisely this one, that we did not take the time necessary to balance the game correctly, so that a larger proportion of our players could enjoy it. Another weakness of our game was not having a proper tutorial, that although it offers the minimum information necessary to be able to play it and discover by exploration how these mechanics work, in the Game Jam event, where each developer benefits by playing and evaluating as many games as possible to attract other developers to play and evaluate their game, you only have an attention window of about 1 minute before each developer gets frustrated and decides to move to the next game. So if you're thinking in participating in a game jam and you haven't done it yet, a tip or recommendation is to make the controls and mechanics as intuitive and accessible as possible. Finally, we will have liked to improve the quality of our UI, homepage and menus, but outside those points, we are quite proud and satisfied with the final state of the game. Depending on the response of this video and on the comments of the game itself, we will be more than happy to return to polish it and implement the mechanics that we didn't have time to include. We are very happy to have participated in our first game jam. We believe it's the best way to force ourselves to complete a project, present it to a constructive community, and expand your portfolio. It's also the fastest and easiest way to receive feedback that every professional in a creative area needs. Thank you very much for staying with us until the end of the video. If you're interested in learning more about this and our future projects, we invite you to subscribe and leave a like. And finally, only to wish you to have an excellent weekend and a lot of success in your projects.